Does help. Okay, members, we're now live streaming. I've got the thumbs up. So welcome to the 28th of March meeting of Finance and Assets Committee. And a welcome to those members of the public and press who are watching on the live stream. If the live stream does go down, we will look at, we will suspend the meeting and look at reconnecting the link. The first item, Tracy's already got it in hand, I think, is public question time. There are no public questions. Item 2 is the apologies and substitutions. I'll let Tracy get back to her seat.
Right, thank you, Chairman. There has been an amendment to the membership of the committee as well, the member substitutes. Councillor Kane is changing substitution for Councillor Holtzman, and leading on from that, she is substituting for Councillor Alison Whelan this afternoon, and Councillor Shepherd has sent her apologies, so Councillor Colbert is substituting, and Councillor Bovingdon has sent his apologies, so Councillor Bailey is substituting.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Hopefully everybody got that. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any members, any declarations of interest? No, I'm seeing nothing. In which case we move to the minutes to confirm the... Is anybody hearing a feedback? Seems like a feedback to me, but I'll see how it goes. Confirm the minutes as a true record of the meeting held on the 25th of January. Any comments on those minutes? No, in which case I'll be able to sign them afterwards as a true record. Chairman's announcements. I've got 3 announcements. There are 2 upcoming just to let members know, there are 2 upcoming member seminars, one on the 25th of April at 6 p.m. on domestic abuse awareness, and the second one is the ECSS ECTC shareholder seminar on the 9th of May at 6 p.m. Both of those are via Teams. The only other announcement I wanted to make is after the last committee, I think there was some unsureness about a letter from the Streatham Parish Council in terms of the support. So hopefully every member of the committee did receive that. Which hopefully clarified the issues that were made. And finally, apologies, we have got with us this evening Paul Remington, John Hill, Emma Grimmer and Nigel Ankers from the trading company, and they will be taking part at the relevant point, which is in fact now. Because I'm moving now on to item 6, the ECTC annual business plan. Before I start the plan, we've obviously got within the exempt appendices items on the business plan. So if members do want to go into that, we're going to have to go into exempt session. Is it not holding you to it, but is there any member wishing to go into the exempt portion? I'm seeing nothing, so in which case we'll probably be able to discuss all of it in open session. Thank you. I'll hand over, I'm not sure who's leading, I'll hand over to Emma.
Thank you, Chair. So on the 7th of March, the ECTC board approved the 2024-25 business plan, which is here before you this evening. And this is a requirement of the shareholder agreement that it's approved by this committee. Some members will be familiar with the key elements of the business plan and they have seen it in this previous form. But for the benefit of the new members, I'll just run through each section and then I'll hand over to the finance manager to run through the financials. So pages 5 through 8 of the business plan set out the background information. You'll have seen this last year. What I've done this year is just update it to reflect the current position. Pages 9 and 10 set out the process matters related to the company, and the key change from last year to bring to your attention is reference to the Fordham office. Our lease comes to an end in the end of December, and we have no intention to renew that lease. An office space will be secured either here at the council offices or at the depot in Littleport, and provisions been made within the budget for the payment of the space to occupy that space. Pages 11 and 12 deal with the governance of the company, and a change from last year is that there's a replacement of the Director of Community with the Director of Operations, so this is now reflected in the business plan. Pages 16 to 21 deal with the risk management, and for members' attention, the board does receive updates on risk management at each of its meetings. Pages 22 to 25 deal with commercial services, those being grounds maintenance and Ely Markets. Both services continue to remain profitable and deliver their investment programmes from the income that they generate for themselves. Then pages 26 to 32 deal with the property development, and for this year we're completing construction at our Eden Square development, and we should start to see sales released in the summer. I'm due to present a full business case to board in the next few weeks for phase 2 Arbour Square, formerly known as MOD phase 2. And if that's approved, we aim to be starting construction later on this year. Phase 3 Arbour Square is something that's in the business plan and will be subject to planning. If planning is achieved, it could be possible that we could see construction during this financial year, albeit at the later end. And finally, on Kennet, we continue to support the delivery board and work particularly with the CLT to ensure that the ambitions of the original vision are achieved. And we're also still site promoters for the care and commercial elements of the land, which we're still working with the landowners on. I'll now hand over to the Finance Manager to go through the figures. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Good evening, members. Looking at the financials on page 13 of the business plan, you can see there a slight increase in revenues for the commercial division. It's about 5% increase for markets and 7% for grounds maintenance. Property revenue includes 6 of the Eden Square properties, although 4 of those are the 100k homes. Also includes about 3.4 million of revenue from phase 2 at Arbour Square. There's a slight reduction in corporate overheads as the management support charge from council that goes to council has been reduced as the trading companies now pick up all of Emma's costs. So they're reflected in each of the divisional costs at ECTC. For staff, we've budgeted for a pay award of £1,925 per person, which has been the award that's been given over the last 2 years, and that equates to an average of about 5.5% across the business. Looking at the commercial costs on pages 24 and 25, the main change in markets is a reduced consultants expense, partly as a health and safety exercise has now been complete, and partly as one of the consultants is now employed full-time and directly by the company, which explains the jump in salary costs. For grounds maintenance, we've got an increase in staff to cover the additional work that they've taken on, and an increase in the cost of hiring additional or replacement vehicles that we hire from council. Looking at the property breakdown on page 32, housing construction costs are broadly in line with when we sell houses and when we recognise the revenue. The premises costs do start to drop away in the final quarter of 24-25, but I have allowed for a slight, as the lease at Fordham expires, as Emma's just explained, I have allowed for some costs to put back some changes that we made to the office over at Fordham, so it doesn't quite show as much as it should. And then there's also a payment for the accommodation that we'd have either at the Grange or Littleport. So back to page 13, that would leave 24-25 with a loss of 364,000. That's it from me. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. We've had some questions submitted already. Obviously, we've had the answers. Without going through those again, is there any items that need to be clarified from the answers? Councillor Kane.
Just to clarify, where you say that ECTC has been able to include additional sites and offer a discount to ECDC because it's been able to generate income and profit from other organisations, your answer to my question would suggest that the vast majority, over 80% of those organisations, are made up of parish councils, schools and charities. So can you confirm we've been making profits off those organisations in order to reduce the costs to ECDC?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I don't understand. Well, I asked the question of why PGH is forecast to make a gross loss in 2023-24, and I'm told that the number of houses sold will only, well, the profit from the houses is insufficient to cover all the costs. Gross profit should be just what we've sold the houses for, less what it cost us to build. So my question is, why are we selling houses at a loss before we've even looked at all the other costs of running a company, just the loss of building those houses?
To clarify, we're not selling the houses at a loss, and I take your point that we perhaps shouldn't describe that as gross profit. What I'm trying to distinguish there is the difference between the divisional profit that Palace Green Homes makes before we allocate or apportion any of the shared costs of the whole ECTC business. So those would be items like the recharges to council, or from council rather, the audit fee, costs like that. So we have the costs of building the houses, and then we have the costs of the salaries directly relating to Palace Green Homes, like myself and the sales team that may not be, aren't part of the project cost.
So if what is called gross profit loss isn't gross profit loss, how can we, and indeed the directors, monitor what's happening with the gross profit loss?
Well, it's a, like I say, it's a divisional profit for Palace Green Homes.
But most commercial companies monitor quite closely their gross profit and the contribution, because that is something that they should be able to control really closely.
Absolutely, and that we do. But if we look at the turnover and the housing construction costs, that would give you that number.
Right, thank you. And so that's presumably why the sales contribution varies, because it's not the sales contribution, because it's not the gross profit.
In the latter years, where we're expecting further receipts from Kennet, there are very few construction costs off the back of those receipts. That's why the contribution jumps up in those years.
All right, thank you. That's helpful. That wasn't in the answer. And then on salaries, they increased 27% in 23-24. And it says because staff weren't working directly on projects. So I don't quite understand why we don't plan the work so that we're using all the available staff.
It's more, we've got staff where there are lulls in what they are able to do in terms of directly affecting the projects, and whether I can legitimately charge their time to a project where in truth they're not actually doing a lot of work on that project at that given time. So I think if you take the sales people, for example, in this period when we've sold almost all of the houses at Haddenham, or we have sold all the houses at Haddenham and almost all of them on the MOD site, we're not quite in a position to start marketing on sales for Eden Square. I can't legitimately charge the sales salaries to any projects at the moment, so they drop into the salary line.
Right, so you would put the sales costs up in cost of sales before arriving at the gross profit?
If they're directly working on that project, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I think we're going into a lot of detail there. Councillor Trapp.
Sorry, first of all, I'd like to apologise for arriving late. The Coolidge wasn't quite rising, and then I found that the bridge under the railway was blocked. Perhaps you had the same problem, so I had to.
No, I didn't come that way, but I am aware of the bridge being blocked, yes.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Anyway, you made it in the end, Councillor Trapp.
I made it in the end, and I'm sorry for being so late.
Sorry, did you want to ask? Because
Yes,
you've asked a
follow-up
couple of
question.
questions. Did you
I
want to
mean,
follow up, or is that what you
Which
put your
I
hand
did
up
have
for?
one question there, which was the bottom of page 2, and it's difficult. I mean, basically, it looks like the council has additional resource which would not otherwise be gainfully employed, and therefore it is being transferred to ECDC work. If ECTC didn't exist, presumably there'd be fewer people being employed by the council. Is that the way I read it?
Is this a clarification question, Chair?
Yeah, it's not, yeah. I mean, it's not really a clarification. We can take that away and give you a written answer on that if you want, yeah. If that finishes questions, we move on to the debate, and we're being asked to approve the ECTC business plan for 24-25. So do I have a proposer that we?
Yes,
do
I'd
that?
like to propose, Chair.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Goldtap.
I'm very happy to second that, Chair.
Yeah. So did you want to speak to?
Yeah,
that?
just a few words, thank you, because, you know, I think it's important. We took a very deliberate decision back in 2016 to set up this trading company. It's not the commercial speculation that many councils have entered into. And I'm pleased to say that we still have no external borrowing at this council, like many other councils which are servicing huge debt costs. And instead, we took a very deliberate decision to do things in a careful way. And you can't fail to note the progress that this council has benefited to the tune of £5.3 million, which for a council of this size is a very, very significant contribution to our coffers and our medium-term financial plan. And it is one of the driving reasons that we set up the company in the first place. And it has massively delivered on that, and not least, I note that it's paid interest payments to East Cambs District Council of 1.5 million and to the Combined Authority of 1.84 million, so 3.3 million in interest payments as a result of the activities of the trading company to date. That, if any other developer had developed the land, that interest certainly wouldn't have been coming our way. So, keeping that interest in the public purse has been a hugely successful thing. Obviously, it's the nature of a company of this type, which it's the majority of its activities financially relate to development activity, that it goes into periods of profit and loss, and while it's busy building the houses, it's not busy selling the houses. We naturally prepare for, years where it will be loss making, but in the knowledge that it will come good in the end. And, the fact that it's benefited the council by 5.3 million to date is to be hugely celebrated. The markets, I have to say, are absolutely unrecognisable from where they were before we put the markets into the trading company. It's a massive success story, and it flies in the face of many markets across this country that have gone into sharp decline. Ely is absolutely thriving. I think I saw somewhere there were 500 traders on the waiting list, or was it 300? Can't remember. It was very significant. I think it was 500 traders on the list, for Ely markets, which is absolutely phenomenal. And bringing in 50,000 visitors every single week to the city centre, which go and spend their money, in our retailers and our independent businesses and the other businesses in the city. So huge success story. And, it's not a drain on the council. It actually, provides a profit back to the trading company. And if you look at parks and open spaces, I think that's a phenomenal thing. I know Councillor Kane wants to have a headline that District Council takes profit off poor little parish councils and schools and so on. But let me tell you, they hugely value the services of our professional, equipped, health and safetied up Parks and Open Spaces team, because they know they're getting a quality service. And I think in particular, the Parks and Open Spaces team has gained a massive reputation for its tree work in particular. And you have to note that nearly 30% of its income is from sources outside the council, which has helped to provide reductions in the council's management costs of our parks and open spaces, but also to absorb any increases in the management fee. You know, they have not increased the fee to the council, and they've provided £300,000 back to the council in a discount over that period. And they're providing a very valued service to other partners in the district. So what a phenomenal success story. And I think it's no coincidence that the chap that was doing our seminar recently on the council's finances and treasury management activities said that this council, you know, is the envy of many, many councils because of this sort of thing that we chose to do. And Palace Green Homes itself, you know, one of the things back in 2016 was the absolute frustration with you know, constant viability arguments with developers, you know, developing sites in our district, some very sizable sites, and not always being able to achieve, you know, the infrastructure that we wanted to, and the number of affordable homes. So we took matters into our own hands, and here we are a few years later, and Palace Green Homes has built or renovated 170 homes for people, 44 of which are affordable, often in conjunction with community land trusts, hugely popular for local people because they can benefit from the affordable homes. We've delivered 100k homes. Where else in the country? Nowhere else in the country is delivering such a phenomenal product. And I wish we could do more, you know, and we will keep working at that. And we've got more coming in Kennet. And of course, we've got the ones that are currently being built in Ely. Went to look at them the other day, looking great. And it's delivered new car parks as well. So, you know, it's massively supported our medium-term financial plan over the years, and it has absolutely facilitated those council tax freezes that are the envy of, you know, no one else has done that for 11 years in a row. So I want to massively thank every single person that's involved in East Cambs Trading Company from top to bottom, or bottom to top, probably more importantly, but particularly more recently, Emma, who's massively stepped up in her role and taken it on just so straightforwardly and so pragmatically, and done a phenomenal job. And of course, Nigel for his very careful financial stewardship. And of course, Paul, who's been with it from the beginning. And of course, our managing director, should not mention him, but everybody, you know, everybody, all the trees surgeons and the guys in the Parks and Open Spaces team and all the people working on the markets and the traders on the markets. You know, they've all supported this, and it's been a brilliant thing, and I'm really proud of everything that we've done with this company.
Thank you for that. Anybody wishing? Councillor Kane.
I shall not be supporting this business plan. As you heard from my questions, I have a problem fundamentally with the terminology that's used in it, which makes it very difficult to understand what things actually mean. As an accountant, I have a general understanding of what cost of sales should include, what turnover should include, what gross profit should mean. It's very confusing to try and understand a set of accounts or a business plan where these terms are used for something different than the standard terminology. So I have struggled to understand them, but I think I've made my way through. Fundamentally, ECTC is not delivering more than 30% affordable housing, which is what we require of any developer, nor is it delivering a surplus to this council. So I can't see what it's achieving. We have this strange table showing allegedly 5.3 million that it's contributed, but that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's made up of land sales. We'd have got that money whoever we sold that land to. It's made of sections 106 and SIL money. We'd have got that money from whoever had developed the site. The loan interest is particularly egregious because we hear that this year we're almost certainly going to get paid less interest than we would earn if we invested our money on the market. So that is just I don't know what it is really, that table. It's meaningless. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny. And I do dislike the fact that we've been profiting from other public sector partners, parish councils, small organisations made up largely of volunteers trying to deliver to their community. We've been making a profit from them. Schools, which we know are really hard stretched for money, we've been making a profit from them, and from charities, all in order to reduce the cost to ECDC. I don't think that is appropriate. And I'm not sure the description of them being really happy with the service is actually correct. Councillor Sharp will remember that there is at least one parish council who were utterly shocked last year to get a notice of a sharp increase in their costs with very little time, with very little notice, and certainly no time to re-tender the work. So I don't think we're providing a great service. And as I say, I don't feel comfortable with a large district council making profits out of those sorts of organisations to reduce our costs. I don't think this business plan stacks up. I cannot support it, and I just don't understand what this company is delivering, because as I say, one of the things it could have delivered, and we asked for it to deliver on the MOD site, for example, was significantly more than the minimum 30% required of any developer, and they haven't done that. And that is such a vital need for this district, for the people who need those homes. If ECTC could do that, it would be really valuable, but it isn't. It's just delivering the bare minimum that any developer would be required to deliver. So I'm going to vote against this, and I'm going to ask for a recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Any members, any more speakers? Councillor Goldsack, did you want to say anything as a second?
There's not a lot left to say, to be perfectly honest with you. I think our leader has covered most of what I was going to say, so I won't repeat it. I couldn't disagree with Councillor Kane more on some of the aspects. Just pick out a couple of examples. I think parks and what's gone on in there, and seeing the improvements around the district is transformational. And I think, you know, there's a huge thanks for there. You know, every time I sit in a room with an accountant, they'll tell me their version of X over Y. I'm not an accountant, but I'm reasonably numerically numerate. And if there's anything that I didn't understand on this, I probably would have gone and asked for half an hour of Nigel's time and said, can you help me with this? But instead of that, we get questions that are labelled in public to put a leaflet out, put it in a Liberal Democrat brochure. And I don't think that's fair on our officers or us, to be perfectly honest with you. So I think we're better than that. And for that reason, I think I commend everybody involved in this report. Keep up the good work. And one thing I will say, there's no chance of the Mayor cancelling any buses into Ely on a Thursday, is there? Thank you.
Councillor Goldsack. Councillor Bailey is the proposer. Do you want to say anything further?
Yeah, just address a couple of points that have been made. I mean, Councillor Kane obviously has a lot of concerns because she submits endless written questions. I would strongly recommend to Councillor Kane, she has access to our officers, and they would be very pleased to sit down and talk about her concerns so that she can come to this meeting feeling fully prepared to debate the item and make a decision. She's obviously feeling underprepared because she's still confused about, you know, what the trading company does and the terminology that is written into the business plan. I'm sure officers are very happy to spend time explaining the detail of that. If Councillor Kane would like to go and have an hour or so of their time, I'm sure that's always an open door and available to any member of this authority, so that when people come to this meeting, they do feel fully prepared to make an actual decision. Of course, the promise on delivery of more than 30% affordable housing on the MOD site was on the site as a whole. And if those that will have read the business plan and the papers carefully will be aware that there's still a phase 2 and a phase 3 to go. on the MOD site, and I have every confidence that we will fulfil our promise on that. So, you know, let's keep close tabs on that. I think it's quite wrong to try and portray the Parks and Open Spaces team as ripping off parish councils, which is virtually how Councillor Kane seems to be wanting to portray things. You know, parish councils and external customers vote with their feet, and they have every right to go and look in the market. And in fact, they have a duty to deliver best value for their taxpayers. And, you know, they will have been out to tender, and, you know, well-run councils do that on a regular basis to make sure that they're still paying competitive prices. And I think they are, you know, happy with their services if they keep coming back. So I'm sorry, Councillor Kane doesn't feel prepared to, you know, make a positive decision on this. You know, I did note that in the February budget meeting, the Liberal Democrat group was quite happy to try to put forward their own idea about having a council tax freeze. They are only able to do that as a result of the efforts of East Cambs Trading Company. And I think it would be nice if we all supported what the trading company is doing and helped it rather than trying to constantly run it down. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. We now move to the recommendation, which is that members are requested to approve the ECTC Business Plan 2024-25 as set out in Appendix 1. We have had a request for a recorded vote, so if I can hand over to Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. When I call your name, can you say whether you're voting for, against or abstaining on the recommendation? Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Kane.
Against.
Councillor Colbert.
Against.
Councillor Dupre.
Against.
Councillor Goldsack.
For.
Councillor, let me get to my Hunt.
For.
Councillor Lay.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Sharp.
For.
Councillor Shepherd. Oh, sorry, this is my wonky eyesight. Councillor Trapp.
Against.
So the motion is carried by 6 votes in favour to 4 votes against.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Moving on then to item 7, which is the end of year reports 2023-24 and the service delivery plan. Thank you, lady and gentlemen. Thank you. And the service delivery plans 2024-25. There is a separate document here which members have got. If I can ask Sally to introduce the paper, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. I'm pleased to present to members the end of year reports for 23-24 and the service delivery plans for 24-25, the service areas listed in the report. The service delivery plan template has been updated to reflect the new corporate plan, and the colours have been changed. So blue represents sound financial management, green, greener East Cambridgeshire, and burgundy, sustainable communities. The performance measures in each service delivery plan now reflect and focus on the key performance indicators of each service area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. We've been asked to note and then approve the plans for 24/25. We have had a number of questions, and obviously I don't want to go into too much detail on some of them, but are there any areas for follow-up? Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Chair. Under the financial services, I asked why there was no performance measure for
Can I
managing.
just stop you? Are we going to get? My apologies, my fault. Just looking at the list, rather than jumping around, are you happy with your responses on democratic services and economic development? They're the first two. If we take them in that order, that I think that makes it more sensible.
Yeah, the first one I had questions, follow-up questions on was financial services.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'm trying to make sure that we're not jumping around.
Should we go?
Yeah. I mean, on the first one, the only one we've got is Councillor Holtzman, who's unfortunately not here. So on the democratic services, Councillor Trapp had one question. Are you happy with your response, Councillor Trapp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you. And then economic development, where Councillor Kane's happy with that. So we are on to finance. Sorry about that, but I think it's more logical if we can do them in order. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Financial services, I asked why there was no performance measure for managing the finances of the Meeple Crematorium project, and was told that this is a finance team service plan. I'm slightly surprised that finance team aren't going to be monitoring, but who is going to be monitoring the Meeple project finances?
Not sure I fully understand the question. I believe the comment about the VAT at Meeple relates to the question, not the immediate question above, but the question above, which says that I don't believe we need a formal indicator on the service plan for that. Clearly, the finance team will be monitoring it outside of the service plan process.
No, it's more part of going, as I understand it, it's a project, so it's part of business as usual going forward. So we will be getting, they will be monitoring that.
So it's part of a project, so it doesn't appear in a service plan, but finance will be monitoring the finances for the Meeple project.
Of course, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. I asked why there were no quality measures on the accounts, and I got C answer above, which I assume this is a finance team service plan?
No, the comment relates to the answer to the question about the 100% audit recommendations, where I've said that I do not believe, well, we can't have service indicators about everything within the service plan, and I believe the ones which are selected in the service plan give the right balance of emphasise the importance of those.
So you're saying that there isn't room to have any quality measures in the service plan?
I think through you, Chair, I think I already answered that question.
Okay, well, that's clearly all the answers I'm going to get. So that's all I've got on financial services, Chair.
HR services, infrastructure and strategic housing. Councillor Kane.
Thank you. I asked why the SIL payments outstanding had increased from 4% to 13%. And I was told it was potentially due to the current economic climate, as some developers are citing increasing costs as the reason for being unable to pay their SIL contribution, and that a payment has been received subsequently, so it's been reduced to 12. Now, this is quite worrying. Is the suggestion that we've got developers who are required to pay a SIL and they're not paying, and they're trying to they're trying to change it, or what exactly is going on here?
Is that something you can... Oh, okay.
The question asks
Angela.
why it's gone, the increase, and that's why we believe the increase, the reason for the increase.
Angela. Did you want to try and answer that? Or?
I think Sally's just answered that question. Sorry. Thank you.
So what are we doing to make sure that this council's going to get that money?
So we follow the SIL.
We are looking to closely monitor those amounts quite regularly, so they don't get forgotten about, and they're not, because they're all on our system, so we know that they're there. It's just a case of following them up and making sure that they don't get left behind.
So are we charging interest on late payments and making sure that they're aware that they're going to have to pay interest if they pay late?
We have surcharges that we can add on to those payments, so yes, we can do that.
No, but are we doing it?
Yes, sorry, yes, we are.
Okay,
That was
thank,
my only question on that one.
okay, thank you for that. ICT. Obviously, some of the answers are that Karen is on leave, so some of those answers will get distributed to members when Karen is back. Legal services, open spaces and facilities, councillor Kane.
So I asked a question about how many of our buildings have which EPC rating. One of them is an E and 3 of them are a D. So what are we doing to bring those up to a better standard?
And we've got Spencer Clark here, so can you able to answer that, Spencer?
Yeah, from memory, I think these are with our new tenants and with the Kite Trust, and been working with those to look at making improvements, especially to the insulation on the windows. I've replacement some of the windows or secondary glazing, which will give us our biggest effect on the rating of the properties. We're also looking at the heating systems as well, but that's a bit of a longer project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer, for that answer. Reprographics, strategic planning. And that takes us to the end of the list. So I'm going to items. I'm happy to propose this from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'd like to second. Thank you, Chair.
Is there anybody, apart from questions, that anybody wants to make a comment on this in terms of debate? I'm seeing, Councillor Hunt and then Councillor Miller.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment, Chair, that Councillor Kane seems to be very worried about not getting the right replies. I sent her one question and she hasn't had the good manners to reply to that. That's one question. And yet she sits there and is complaining about not getting the right.
I'm not sure that's really relevant to this
No,
debate.
I'm making it just
Councillor
a matter of the record, Chair.
Yeah. Councillor, I'll get Councillor Kane come in on that. And I know I've got Councillor Miller.
Councillor Hunt, if he reads the papers, will see the answer to his question.
Thank you.
Like you, I don't understand.
All right, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I had a follow-up question to what Councillor Kane said about in respect of the SIL payments. I didn't quite get a chance to get in there, but it's half a comment and half a question. Would it be fair to say that where a developer runs into cash flow trouble, which happens when costs are unpredictable, inflation and so forth, that the outstanding SIL money accrues and will eventually become payable in due course? So where is the worry?
I think it's fair comment to say that obviously some builders, yes, are struggling a bit, so they may be allowed a bit of leeway, but there's a very tight, I can assure you, there's a very tight control on it in terms of making sure that it's not can go too far. Councillor Trapp.
Thank you very much. Back again to these SIL payments. I mean, it is worrying that we are not collecting what should be paid to us. And I realize that developers have problems. I don't know what the procedure is, whether one can have a lien on the property to say, until it's paid, you are not going to get certified as a house and not for sale. I just don't understand these problems. I mean, it's something that if you buy a car, you have to prove ownership, ownership of the car. Here we have to prove, how can one sell houses then which have not had the SIL money paid for them by the developer? I think we should be looking into that.
I mean, Sally may be able to answer it, but my understanding is there was a charge put against the houses, which is not released until the sale. Do you want to clarify that, Sally?
Yeah, so it's actually a land charge, the SIL payment.
So what Sally said, there's a land charge against the payment, so they can't sell that charge will stay there until it's paid.
Right, and because we have an item later on, which I think is relevant to this.
Councillor Colbert.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to ask you, what I don't understand at the moment is what the triggers are for paying the SIL money. Presumably it's on completion of a number of houses ongoing through the contract.
It varies on the size of the development. The information is on our website. So it depends part on completion, and if the value is over a certain amount, there's an instalment policy.
Okay, thank you.
I'm seeing no more hands, in which case we move to the recommendation that members are requested to note the outcome, which we have done in the end of year reports 2023-2024, and approve the service delivery plans 2024 in Appendix 1 for each of the items that are listed numbers 1 to number 2X. I'm not going to read them all out, but is everybody, I'm seeing no dissent on that, so is everybody happy with that? Thank you, members. We move on to item 8. Yes, those members of staff can now depart if they're not required later. I move on to item 8, which is the local plan, climate change and nature recovery chapter update on progress. So if I can hand over to Richard Kay to introduce it. Thank you, Richard.
Right, thank you, Chair. Yep, Richard Kay, Strategic Planning Manager. I think you're all familiar with me. I'll just be very brief on this item, and I've obviously got the next item as well to follow. It is quite a wide-ranging item, but in short, what it's doing is recommending that, in simple terms, we don't rush too fast with our emerging climate and nature chapter for the local plan due to the national uncertainties that the report sets out. Hopefully the report explains those uncertainties clearly, but obviously I'm happy to answer any further questions on those. In addition to that, what it's saying is that the report is recommending we, in addition to the climate and nature policies that we talked about at committee in November, that we also add on the theme of water into that emerging chapter, because clearly there's a strong relationship between water, climate and nature, and especially so here in the Cambridgeshire area, which I'm sure you're aware of some of the issues that have been raised locally between water and planning system. Away from that, the report is briefly gives an update on biodiversity net gain, which I'm pleased to say is progressing well here in East Cambridgeshire. Though I have to emphasise on Tuesday coming is when small sites also fall under the regulation. So presently it's only been major applications, which obviously are much less in quantity that come through the planning system. From Tuesday, small sites, so basically all applications fall under the duty of biodiversity net gain. So that's clearly going to be something we'll have to manage from next week. And then finally, the report gives a very brief update on plan making as a whole and where are we with national legislation to allow the new plan making system, which has been to this committee and full council a few times with updates on that. But there's a very brief update again here for members' information. So quite a few things there, Chairman. Hopefully the report's self-explanatory, but again, I'm here for any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We've had 2 questions on this, so I'm presuming you're happy with the responses on that. Thank you. We've got I'm happy to propose this from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Day. We have had an amendment to the proposal from Councillor Kane and seconded by Councillor Dupre. Do you wish to speak to that amendment, Councillor Kane?
Yes, please, Chair. Are you going to speak to the motion first?
No, I will just sum up as part of this amendment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're asking to add some clauses to the recommendation. We'd like to ask officers to keep members updated on progress made by other councils in formulating policies around embedded carbon, and ask the Chief Executive to write to the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities to express this council's deep frustration about the complex and contradictory policy from national government on planning for net zero homes in England, to explain that the written ministerial statement of 13th of December 2023 will stifle the attempts of ECDC to take innovative action on climate change through the use of the local plan policy to secure energy efficient net zero new development, and calls on the Minister to rescind the WMS of 13th of December and reaffirm the right of local planning authorities to set higher standards for energy efficiency. I quite accept that we have little choice but to delay slightly how we take this forward until everything is clearer. But it's extremely frustrating that this council has accepted that there is a climate emergency, is trying to do things to reduce the risks and mitigate against it. And we agreed, I believe unanimously, that we wanted these additional measures in our local plan. And now all of a sudden, by a ministerial statement on which there's been no consultation, we're told we can't do it. And I really think we should bring to the Minister's attention quite the impact that that has. We are, after all, a local authority that is still growing quite substantially. We're building a lot of houses that are going to last, hopefully, long into the future. We want to build them of a high standard. And let's face it, if we don't get it right and climate change happens at some of the rates and consequences that are predicted, there won't be much of East Cambs to discuss, because we'll be underwater. So it's really important that we get these things right. And I think the Minister should understand that this council is very unhappy that we can't do what we unanimously agreed that we wanted to do. So that's why we've put this amendment forward, and I hope it will get support.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Dupre, did you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak? Okay, thank you. Members, anybody wishing to comment on this? We're talking about we're debating the amendment here. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, you've only just seen this amendment since sitting down, but you know, I know that Richard will keep members up to date. He always does at relevant points. And thank you, Richard, once again, for a very clear report and an excellent seminar, which put those members that managed to make it to the seminar, gave them all this information in quite some detail, you know, behind the scenes. So this hasn't come to us new. And I think everybody was a bit taken aback by, you know, the announcements that came from government. I think it's wrong. The amendment talks about, you know, a preempted outcome of net zero new development. I think that's jumping the gun a bit. I don't think we'd got to that point. We were still developing our views on what a new chapter should look like in our local plan around climate change. You know, that was still very much early days and work in progress and subject consultation and all the rest of it. So I don't think you can preempt the fact that we were going to start demanding and requiring net zero new development in our local plan. So I don't think that's quite right in the amendment. And yes, there was a general consensus at that seminar that the right thing to do would be to pause and wait and see, as our officers are recommending that we do. And I have noted in paragraph 3.17 about this legal challenge that is going on. And I think we would do vastly better to go with the officer recommendation as it is, and wait to see the outcome of that. And, you know, there are local plans that are going through the process right now that will be, as I understand it, will be testing, you know, what's the outcomes are going to be around this. And so, you know, we are in the fortunate position time-wise of being able to, you know, take a pause for breath and find out what the outcomes of those are. I don't think writing letters and preempting our, you know, desire to say we want net zero new development, I don't think we'd got to that point. So I don't support this amendment as it is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've got Councillor Trapp, then Councillor Lay, then Councillor Miller. Councillor Trapp.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bailey is quite right in saying that we haven't decided on having net zero homes, but I think the the essence of this amendment is to say we should have that right. We should be able to have the opportunity of saying that. And here it is, a ministerial statement is made, just say no. And that's why I'm going to be supporting this amendment, because I think it should be, we should be, even though we may not have to get down to net zero, we at least have the opportunity of doing it. And that is what is at stake here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. Councillor Lay.
Yes, you know, when we decide that we want levelling up better housings in our community, there are often consequences that we overlook. You know, within this bill, all EPC ratings below a level C were, as far as rental houses were concerned, we would have found that we were lifting the EPC rating, and we would have found that lots of those houses would be sold and the tenants would be out on their ear because the landlords want the property back. And, you know, this is the consequence of jumping too far too quickly. And I believe that taking a more sensible approach is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lay. I've got Councillor Miller.
I suppose I'd like to ask what realistic, measurable outcome may reasonably be expected were Councillor Kane's motion to pass? And if none, what reason is there to pass the motion?
I'm not sure anybody's going to be able to answer that question. It's a rhetorical question, yes.
Respectfully, Chair, it's not entirely rhetorical. The motion calls for the Chief Executive to write to the Secretary of State, as written here. What is that going to achieve?
It's more of a statement, yeah. Okay, Councillor.
I have to say something if you're happy to let me, but let's speak once.
Yeah, I'm happy to allow you, just, you know, providing that, you know, it's just a short explanation, but
So the idea is that if enough local authorities write to the minister, there is some hope that the minister might change his mind and allow local authorities to develop their own policies locally in their local plan.
Thank you for that short, concise statement. I'm seeing no more hands, in which case I go to Councillor Dupre as the seconder of the amendment. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you very much. It is a huge shame, I think, that the debate that we could have had here today about what we would like to see in our own climate change and nature recovery chapter has been overtaken and to some extent squashed by an announcement from a minister to say that we are not allowed to have control over so much of this. And that's the real sadness here. The debate is not about whether we want to have net zero homes or a net zero Cambridgeshire. The debate is whether we should be allowed to make that decision for ourselves. And the government has announced that we shouldn't. And it is wrong, entirely wrong, that this council and other councils should be held back from achieving what they want to achieve in terms of climate change, in terms of nature and all of those important things, water management we've heard about. It is wrong for councils to be held back from trying to achieve the best by ministerial diktat. Clearly, given that that is what has happened, it is right to pause, and nobody is disagreeing with that, I think, around this table. There's no point pressing ahead if the government says that we are not allowed to make up our minds on these matters for ourselves. But in the meantime, I think the amendment is asking for some very sensible things. It's asking that we be kept up to date with what other local authorities are doing and what they have been able to achieve despite the very negative environment that the government has created around this. And I think we do need to keep up to date with that. It's important to learn from other authorities. We shouldn't be a little enclave all on our own. We should be learning from the best. And I would have hoped that members would want to do that. It is also asking for the Chief Executive to write to the Minister to express those views. And clearly, Councillor Miller has as cynical a view of how much the Minister is going to listen, as I do. But nonetheless, it seems to me to be the right thing to do, particularly if other authorities do likewise, because this is so absolutely critically important. And if nobody says to the Minister, look, you got it wrong, the Minister won't realise he's got it wrong, as we believe the Minister has. So that's what I believe the letter would achieve, and that's why I believe it's important to write it, and that's why I believe we need to learn from other authorities how they are able to circumvent the constraints that the government is putting on local authorities that wish to be ambitious about climate change and nature recovery. And that's why I am supporting this amendment and why I believe that other members should do so also. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I, as the proposer, have the chance to sum up, and I don't just intend to really say too much at all. I'm sure Richard will keep us updated on things as he has done in the past, but I'm not a great believer in just writing letters. So from that point of view, I think we move to the vote on the amendment. Do you want Tracy? Yeah, it's on a show of hands. So all of those in favour of the amendment, all of those against the amendment?
Lost by 6 votes to 4.
Okay, thank you. In which case the we then go on to the substantive recommendation that's on the paper. Again, I don't, as the proposer, don't propose to say much more. I think we've had the debate on that, unless there's anybody wishes to comment. Councillor Kane and then Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Richard for trying to keep up with the various twists and turns. And certainly I agree that we should be adding water. That is a major issue for us. So fortunately, adding water gives you something to get working on while you wait for the government to get its act together on what the situation is on net zero. I'm sorry that we haven't strengthened this recommendation, but despite that, I will support it because I can't honestly see that we currently have any choice but to take things a bit more slowly whilst we wait for more clarity. As I understand it, the legal situation is that there's a policy, a bill that says one thing, and this ministerial statement that says something else, and it's that's why, as I understand it, it's going through the court, and it will be interesting to see what comes out of it. I don't really think it's a great use of public sector money for local authorities to have to go to court against the government. I think it would be better if the government just changed its mind and allowed local authorities to have local discretion in our local plan for how we want development to happen in our local areas. But since you didn't agree to that, I will at least vote for the recommendation as it stands. And I do thank the officer for all their work on it.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. I've got Councillor Bailey and then Councillor Dupre.
Well, I'm not sure that Councillor Kane's description was quite right. I don't know what my reading of the situation was, that it was not so much about differences between the statement and the bill, so much as you know, the challenge from a particular council that says, well, regardless of that, we have the inalienable right to, you know, to make our own local plan, regardless, that there's an overriding right, you know, going further back. I mean, maybe Richard can provide some clarity. And also, I did just want to provide some reassurance, because Councillor Dupre was talking about an inability to move forward on nature recovery, but actually what the paper says is that we can move forward on nature recovery, and indeed we are doing, and biodiversity net gain is now in place as of 28th of February or something, I think. So all developers are required to show how they are delivering 10% biodiversity net gain on all applications that came in after that date. And that is happening. And actually, I visited just this week a fantastic biodiversity net gain project, a massive project in my own patch of East Cambridgeshire, Ox Willow, which is setting itself up and investing hugely and putting in large acres of land into a biodiversity net gain project. Incredibly exciting. And we took a tour there on the back of a tractor and trailer with Peter Freeman from Homes England, who is the chair of the Cambridge Delivery Group. So it was really, really exciting project there. So it is happening, and I don't believe we're held back from, you know, going for that and making that a reality. And I very much welcome the addition of the water issues. Again, that was a hot topic at our meeting, and is a very hot topic, particularly in Cambridgeshire. So, you know, it's a shame that we found ourselves in this position, but I think this is absolutely the right thing to do. I don't know whether Richard could just provide some clarity on this issue around the ministerial statement versus the legal challenge versus the bill.
I'm happy to allow Richard, if that helps members.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to explain. Where it stems from is the 2008 Planning Act rather than a bill. So it's an act in place which says, and I don't have it in front of me, but it broadly says that a local planning authority in its local plan has the ability to set its own local planning policies which go beyond building regulations. So the Act allows it in that very broad sense. It doesn't go into the detail of precisely how it must word it. It's just a sentence to that effect. And the argument is that the written ministerial statement of December goes beyond what that Act allows a minister to say. Because basically a written ministerial statement can't override an Act. And therefore the argument is whether or not the minister has gone beyond what he is allowed to do. Now, it's not for me to say whether he has or he hasn't, but that's where the legal debate is happening, and whether there will or won't be a legal challenge or not will be based on that basic principle of whether the minister has gone beyond what he's allowed to do on the basis of the 2008 Act.
Thank you for that. That's very, I don't know, that's very useful from my understanding of it. Yeah. I've got Councillor Dupre next.
Thank you. Yes, and it's great to have that statement of the position restated, and I agree absolutely with what the officer has said. I'm very pleased indeed to see water in here as something to work on. It's something I requested last time we discussed this, and it is obviously extremely important, not just in its own terms, but also because, as we will know, the Cambridge 2050 has now become Cambridge 2040 and now become the case for Cambridge. And a lot of what is in there is predicated on something called water offsetting, about which I am deeply, deeply sceptical. But there it is. Water offsetting, and I think water is going to be critical not just for whatever is done to Cambridge by the delivery vehicle that is being set up, but also for those of us in the Cambridge hinterland who feed into the Cambridge economy and are affected by what happens in Cambridge. So there are a number of reasons for wanting to focus on water for our own sake, and also for the sake of the bigger landscape of Cambridgeshire into which we fit. I think light is also extremely important for biodiversity reasons as well as others, and is also something I would like to see us concentrating more on as well. I'd like to reiterate the thanks that have been given to Richard for his diligent work in this and for his absolute commitment and the fund of knowledge that he has and is making available to us as members. So thank you very much indeed, Richard, for this. And like Councillor Kane, although I'm disappointed that this recommendation wasn't strengthened by way of the amendment, I will nonetheless be voting for it as far as it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I'm seeing no other hands, in which case I'll go to the seconder of the proposal, Councillor Lay, if he wants to say anything. No, okay, so I'll just sum up. I think it's unanimous around the table that we're all frustrated with what has happened, and obviously in 3.17, I think the legal challenge, once that's been agreed, and these things do take a long time, we might know a bit more. But I'd also like to echo my thanks to Richard for the work he's done on this. But in which case I'm guessing that I'm going to get no dissent to this. So moving to the vote, is everybody in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. In which case we move on to item 9, which is also Richard, which is the hedgehog recovery design guidance draft for consultation. Richard, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will be very brief on this one. So basically this report is asking members to approve, for the purpose of consultation, a short, simple supplementary planning document, or SPD as they're often known in short. And what the SPD is trying to do is ensure that hedgehogs are fully considered in the planning application process. Full details are obviously set out in the report, and then the actual SPD is set out as an appendix. But just to emphasise, this SPD is there to help developers and the wider community. It's certainly not there to put a burden, a financial burden on developers. I mean, whilst the scale of this, on the scale of things, you know, this SPD is perhaps not the most wide-ranging or influential, and it's probably not the most wide-ranging and influential report, a planning document I've ever written in my 30-year career. But I think it's fair to say it's received more coverage, interest, national and local, than anything else I've ever written. You know, it's been tweeted and social media posted from Warwickshire to Wolverhampton, and it's been on the BBC website and national radio, which is great to see. And I think what that probably emphasises is that, you know, when the people of East Cambridgeshire voted for hedgehogs to be that special species, they wanted us to make a special effort to help recover. You know, you can see nationally they equally probably would have made the same vote. But in our own little way, this SPD, amongst lots of other measures we're doing for hedgehogs, and we'll carry on doing for hedgehogs, it's very much a long-term project, not a short-term one. You know, this SPD can do that little bit to help on that wider journey of recovering hedgehog numbers in East Cambridgeshire. Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you for the work you're doing on this. We did have some questions on this. One from Councillor Holtzman and 3 from Councillor Kane. Are you happy, Councillor Kane? You're happy with the responses? In which case we've got a recommendation. Do I have a proposer for the recommendation? Councillor Hunt and a seconder. Councillor Miller. Do you wish to speak now, Councillor, to the proposal, Councillor Hunt?
Yes, if I may. I don't know, I get being told all the time that the hedgehogs are the only prehistoric animals that are still living on our planet, and I think what delightful little animals they are. I've been very fortunate in that I've got some waste ground on my property, and I have regularly hedgehogs there, and squirrels, and for that matter newts, and I'm delighted to have them all there. And I'm just really pleased that we're now trying to extend this, so it's not just the ones who've got their own wildwood, it's everybody in the whole community, and I think they're just gorgeous, and I think we spend so much time discussing very serious and important things, and it's rather nice to be doing something that's going to help preserve and expand the hedgehog population of East Cambs. So I'm totally in favour of it.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Miller, did you want to speak now or reserve your right?
Other than to say that it's an easy win. No further.
Councillor Kane.
I'd like to congratulate Richard on his international coverage of his hedgehog policy, but actually it is an important policy because hedgehogs are an important part of our biodiversity, as well as being creatures that we all love, me from stories of Mrs. Tiggywinkle and things like that. And also, if we protect the hedgehog, if we create an environment that the hedgehog can thrive in, then many other wildlife can thrive as well. So it is an important document. It's a good, clear document. And I like the fact that it avoids the necessity to constantly be doing a survey to see if there are hedgehogs before you take action, and just saying, look, just take the action anyway, because if you take the right action, even if there weren't hedgehogs then, there may be hedgehogs in the future, and that's a good thing. So I shall happily be voting in favour of this recommendation and this paper, and supporting it as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kane. I've got Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely love this. I really love it. And you can tell the love in the room that there is for it. And it's fantastic that it's getting picked up by other people, because hopefully, you know, the love will spread and we'll you know, be able to make a bigger difference across the country, not just in East Cambs. And I think we can't do it right now because we're in Purda purgatory, but when we're not in Purda purgatory anymore, you know, we can make more of this. And each time we get a development that's, you know, adopting the measures that we're asking them to, we need to make something of it and, you know, just keep it going. It's wonderful that the people of East Cambs chose hedgehogs. There are other species that need our help and support, and we can try and do something in the future on that. And I just want to thank Richard and his very small team for, you know, the ingenuity and the creativity. And I know they've had input from across the council on, you know, the environment top 20 actions every year, and this has been born out of that. I do remember going back many years, Councillor Elaine Griffin-Singh at the time really massively caring about hedgehogs, and we had a very informal thing within the planning team that the planners would try and seek, you know, hedgehog holes in the fencing and that sort of thing, but it was very informal. I'm really pleased this has been put on a formal footing, but such a simple policy that everybody can get engaged with it. And let's really try and monitor, you know, how many people are taking it up and make it happen. And yeah, it's brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bailey. I'm not seeing any other speakers. Councillor Hunt, did you want to make any more comments, or we go to the vote?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I totally agree with Councillor Bailey, and I believe that we should clearly not just focus on hedgehogs, but we should respect the wildlife that is so close to us, and it should be automatic that when in planning applications we consider the welfare, and also it's the welfare of our next generations, because it's the welfare of our next generations as well. So I urge everybody, if they can, on this motion, approve it and pass it unanimously. I think it would send a good message.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunt. I'd like to express my thanks to Richard again for the work him and his team has done on this. And as the recommendation is, members are requested to approve, for the purpose of public consultation, the draft hedgehog recovery supplementary document, with such, as has been just said, the consultation taking place after the Police and Crime Commissioner elections, because obviously we can't put something out during the current period, but so it'll go out sometime towards the end of May for 4 weeks. I'm guessing I've got unanimous support on that. I'm seeing no dissent, so thank you, members. That's unanimously approved. Thank you, Richard. I'm sure you can wend your way home, and happy Easter to you. We now move on to item 10, which is the assets update and asset management plan 2024-25, and we've got Spencer Clark to introduce it.
Thank you, Chair. It's been another interesting financial year with all the projects we've had on the go, from car park repairs to rebuilding of public works of art, where I'm referring to the sluice down at the river, as well as the major development at the depot. But all these works are linked with the biggest challenge to us all, is to keep the least disruption to the public and keep operational for our own staff. And it's been really good to finish the year on a bit of a high with the opening of the Changing Places facility at Soham, which is a fantastic facility and hopefully be well used. I hope you feel that you can approve the next year's schedule of works, and of course we will continue to do these hopefully on cost, on time, and with the minimal disruption to public and our staff. That concludes my little update, Chair. I'm happy to take any interested questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Spencer, for that. We've had some questions submitted from Councillor Kane, and obviously Councillor Holtzman's not here. Are you happy with the responses, Councillor Kane? Do you wish to come back? Okay, thank you.
It's actually more something for this committee than for the officer. But as you know, we're having a GIS update across the council. And I asked how the asset management records were going to be affected. And it said that the detailed discussions are still to be had. I would like it to come back to this committee because I know from bitter experience, these things can be quite a lot of work. And I want to make sure as a committee that we understand the workload and that we have ensured that we've put adequate resource into enabling it to go ahead, because these are really vital records for this council.
Thank you for that. I'm sure we can pick that up outside the meeting in terms of what we do with that. We are being asked, and do I have a proposer for this item? Councillor Hunt and the seconder? Yep. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Hunt, did you wish to say anything on this item?
Well, yes, I would like to say something here. If anybody cares to study the list of properties that this authority owns on the sort of fag packet type calculation, there's something like 250 pieces of property that are owned. Now, the value of those could vary considerably according to the circumstances at the time, who's interested in buying them. And of course, it costs £600, I believe, to have any property valued, whatever it is. So I think we just have to carry on valuing properties as and when it's required, and not before. And I urge the rest of the agenda item is, I think, is well put together, well constructed, and I will of course support it.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Bailey, did you wish to speak now or reserve your no? Councillor, I've got Councillor Kane.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Spencer and his team, because when you read through it, the range of assets that you and your team have to deal with, and indeed I know you do a lot of work out in the local community with parish councils and local residents and things. So I think there's a lot of work behind these tables. And you've set yourself a lot of work to do in the coming year as well. I'll be supporting it. As I say, I want to make sure that we are giving adequate resource to that department to do what's in this asset plan and manage the GIS change for all their records. But I shall be voting for this, and I thank the team for the work that they do.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, add some thanks to Spencer and the way that not only he cares about what he does, but the way he leads his team and the way it operates, I think is exemplar. I think is absolutely first class, and you know, I don't put that praise out lightly. For example, the Changing Places in Soham. I could easily tell you the difference it's made for the people of Soham. What I can't tell you, but I have a very good feeling on, is how much difference it's made for people travelling past, through or around Soham, because they now have somewhere on their record that they know has full changing facility to go to. And it's that kind of thing, and updating their assets and working with the local authorities there, the town council and everybody involved, to produce quite a remarkable outcome. So for that and many other reasons, I am totally 100% behind supporting this. And thank you again, Spencer.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I'm seeing no more hands. Did you want to, I'll move, Councillor Hunt, you want to say something before we go to the vote?
Well, yes, I'd made a note that I was going to repeat a little bit of what Councillor Goldsack said when he was praising Spencer. And I don't think we can ever let one of his meetings go past without saying a great big thank you to him. And he has changed the attitude in many cases that the people hold for East Cambs District Council, and he is a credit to us all the time. And I will be supporting this agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunt. And I'd like to echo thanks to Spencer from the committee. We are now being...
Chair, if I may, can I just say I have a very good team. It's not just me. And we all work together as a council as a whole, I think. So.
You're very modest, but yeah, thanks to the whole team as well from us, I think. I'm sure that all members would echo that. We're being asked to note the corporate asset management plan provided at Appendix 1. I think we've done that. Approve the asset management spend for 24-25 as detailed in Appendix 2. And note the asset management 2023-24 spend to date as detailed in Appendix 3. I'm guessing that that is going to be unanimously supported by the committee. I'm seeing no dissension. Thank you, members. And thank you, Spencer. And I think that's you finished for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good Easter. Thank you. Item 11, we're moving on then, is whistleblowing policy. And if I can hand over to Maggie Camp, the legal officer, to Director of Legal, to introduce this.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't really have anything. My report is very brief. Looked at the current whistleblowing policy, which hadn't been reviewed since December 2014, and found really it just needed redrafting. This is what members had before them. Happy to take any questions. I do note there was some questions that were submitted by Councillor Kane.
No, yeah. Yes, we've got some questions. We've got one from Councillor Kane, actually, 5 from Councillor Holtzman, who's not here, and we've got one from Councillor Trapp. So, I'm looking, Councillor Trapp, are you happy with your response?
Well, actually, looking back as to what was written in the original thing, it does say there'll be some initial findings done with the acknowledgement, and I think that's where it's quite wrong. I think it should be just saying, we thank you for your, whatever it is, whistleblowing. We shall get back to you. Just an acknowledgement. But here it says 10 days is also.
Where are you talking?
Well, it's 8.5.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, that was in the page 10.
Yeah.
It's actually
Okay,
page 11. I think it's over the.
Yeah, it's over the page. Yeah.
It's over the page. It does say indicating that acknowledging the concern and indicating that the initial findings. I'm not sure that that should be happening, actually, if I say, I mean, it should be just saying acknowledging and then saying something.
Maggie can come in, you can come in on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry, thanks, Chairman. Just through you. I think there might have been a little bit of confusion, because it's actually saying within 10 working days of concern being raised and following an initial investigation, in other words, accepting whether there is a public interest, and those tests have been met, the monitoring officer or the investigating officer will write to the person to acknowledge that the concern has been received and indicating the initial findings, i.e. that it's been accepted and how it will be proposed to deal with the matter. It's not, I think, at that stage that we'll be indicating what the actual outcome will be. It's just saying, this is how we're proposing to deal with it. So I hope that provides some clarity there, Chairman.
Yeah, I'll let you come back in, Councillor.
If
I can just say, my understanding of what you just said there is that the whistleblower will get a response back within 10 days, which will outline, and then obviously there will be a potential time frame as to when the full response is. Is that your question?
Well, it isn't. I think what I was confused by is the initial findings. It seems actually if some effort was being done to see about this, and I'm not sure if that is the right thing. I think the acknowledgement is fine, and how proposed to deal with the matter fine, but it's the initial finding. I don't think there won't be any initial findings at all, will there? or
If I can, if I may through you, it's really indicating, obviously there's some particular tests that have to be made when you receive a whistleblowing allegation. And it's actually just confirming the same as I would with a code of conduct matter. I have to go through initial tests to see it meets those particular tests. It's the same with a whistleblowing allegation. And that's why it says there that indicating initial findings, in other words, it meets the tests, and that actually then it will be dealt with and how long it will take to deal with that. So really, I hope that clarifies matters. If members would like me to reword that in some way, I'm happy to do so.
I think Councillor Colbert, and I'll come back in, yeah.
Well, actually, I think it would benefit from a little rewording, if you could please, because I'd read it in exactly the same way that Councillor Trapp had, but I knew he'd submitted this question, so I didn't query it. Thank you.
I think Councillor Goldsack.
I have some sympathy with the question in this case, to be perfectly honest. And when you described it, Maggie, you used a sentence in the middle there that clarified it completely for me. So I think that you already know exactly what you needed to do as a slight amendment in there. But I would back a slight amendment to it along the lines of what you did when you verbalised it, because that made much more sense than what I read from it. You're going to ask me to say what you said now, aren't you?
Satisfying the initial test.
I mean, we can either do it two ways. One is we try and work it, or else we can agree it subject to revised wording, which is sent round to members
Can I just,
after the meeting.
I think I'm right in speaking for the meeting when we say we're happy to leave it to Maggie to agree the wording, and it's something along the lines of an outcome of it meeting the initial tests or not. That's really it. But I'm more than happy to leave it to Maggie.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring Councillor Lane in a minute who wants to come in. My proposal would be that if members are happy with it, which we'll go to in a minute, then we accept it, but with the proviso that it's taken away, maybe in consultation between Maggie redrafts it in consultation with myself, and that then that is then sent round to all members. Councillor Lay.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I thought this area was so important that it ought to be expanded, so that anyone reading this could understand immediately the procedure that we were going to go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lay. Councillor Kane, you had a question. Are you happy with the response on that? Yes, you are. Members, in terms of a proposer, I'm happy to propose this from the chair. So do I have a seconder? I've got Councillor Lay.
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Does any member, I don't really propose to say too much from the chair. Anybody want to debate it? Councillor Kane.
I'd like to propose an amendment, Chair. So do I do that now, or do you want to? Yeah.
Please do that, yeah.
I would like to propose that we note it and that we ask internal audit to facilitate completion of the Protects whistleblowing benchmark and any resulting amendments to be made, and then the revised document brought back to this committee for approval.
I'm not sure what the internal audit benchmark is, but off the top of my head. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Dupre. Is there any comment you want? Yeah.
I would say that I did forward this to internal audit. They have seen this, and just about adding in the only comment I had from internal audit was that they wanted details of how to contact internal audit. I don't know which page it is, and also it's on page 9. They wanted, Rachel Ashley-Corn asked me if I would add in her contact details and also add in the contacts for the external auditor as well. They were the only comments that I had.
So internal audit have seen this then, yeah. Yeah. Did you want to speak to the amendment?
Yes, Chair,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, if you do that now, and then we can.
Thank you.
No.
The document is obviously trying to set a clear guidance for people who have concerns and they want to whistleblow. But we've heard from several members that it isn't entirely clear. I found it, there wasn't an easy sort of trail to follow through the document. And also there were bits in it about if we judge your complaint to be malicious, then we'll take disciplinary action. I think those things have to be worded extremely sensitively, because of course you have to have the right if someone's being malicious, but if you put yourselves in the shoes of someone who's concerned and they've perhaps tried to raise things with their manager and got answers that they're not comfortable with, and they're now thinking of using the whistleblowing, it's a big step for people. And I think we need to be clearer with them that they will be supported. I personally think we should give them an independent person to report to, not a great long list of various people they might report to. I think it should be much simpler that they report to internal audit, and if it is about something to do with internal audit, they report to external audit. I think the document has got a lot of good things in it, but I just don't think if it was being read by someone who is quite nervous about what they're doing, trying to understand it, I think they would find it difficult. Now, what the amendment is asking is not for internal audit to review it. It's asking for internal audit to facilitate a review, because there's an organisation called Protect, which is set up to try and help organisations have good, strong whistleblowing policies, help people feel confident. Because after all, a whistleblower is a really important person. They're the person who can bring to our attention, hopefully early, before anything awful has happened, that something isn't as it should be, so that we can change it. And so Protect is an organisation that tries to help organisations like us get a really good policy. And they have this self-assessment that we can run through, and I'm suggesting internal audit could facilitate that, to make sure that we've got a really robust, strong policy, and that we've explained it clearly to the potential whistleblower so they understand how the process is going to work, and there's absolute clarity. And I do think we should be absolutely clear that it will all be done by someone independent. Internal audit is a good option for that. I don't think we should be asking a whistleblower to go to another member of staff. That's a really big ask. I think we should just straight away say to them, if you've got concerns, take it to internal audit. But it may be that the self-assessment benchmarking doesn't agree with me, and so be it. But I just would like to feel that we'd done that, because then I think we'd have a robust policy that we could all be confident was going to ensure that anyone who had concerns would bring them ultimately to our attention if they're valid, so that they can be addressed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Dupre, you reserving the right to speak at this stage. Any members, anybody wish to speak on this, on the amendment? Councillor Goldsack.
It may be the time of day, it may be, I'm really struggling to understand the amendment. I'm really struggling to understand what it is that we're asking for. We've got nothing in front of us. There's nothing here to refer to. Let me try and explain my understanding of it, and then you can tell me whether I've got it right or not, because I don't know whether I'm for it or against it at the moment, and I don't want to vote accordingly without knowing. What you're saying is that we cease this operation, and what we do is we give the whistleblower the option of going to internal audit for them to handle any whistleblowing complaint that they want to make, that they would then oversee the process that's dictated in this document. Is that what you're asking for?
No, that's not the purpose of the amendment. The purpose of the amendment is that we should put this policy through the self-assessment for whistleblowing so that we make sure it's a really robust and good policy.
If I can come back through you, Chair. I'm reluctant to defer for everything that's gone on for this, but we're in a position where I don't know what that means. I don't know what's going before self-assessment means. I can't see where that's relevant. I can't see where that's documented or where I know enough about it. So, you know, I don't know what other people thinking around the room or whether they're just going to vote based on the document. I don't know what it is.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I've got Councillor Trapp.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether we've had any whistleblowing in this council yet, but I am concerned about paragraph 610 on page 9. It does seem to say, it really sort of loads it against the whistleblowing, and whistleblowing is actually quite important. And it's not a step, I think, taken lightly. Yeah, it could be done maliciously, it can be done, but also what we're really setting is, in terms of things, what we want is people to do come forward when there is genuine concern. And if this kind of language, I think it's something about the language here, which says, makes it a bar. I'd far rather see more people coming to doing whistleblowing, even if they admit one or two people who may have done it maliciously, because I think that can be sorted out. But because it's going to be investigated and it's going to be investigated properly. So I do really think that this is the slight wording here should be changed. I think 7.1 also, I think, doesn't work. I think the first step of concern should normally be raised with your line manager. Well, maybe yes, but we're talking about whistleblowing. We're looking at this document. This is the stage beyond that, really. It's setting out things for whistleblowing. And I am concerned that it can be used, I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with you, the monitoring officer in person, but it is, it's very difficult, I think, for an organization where there are people much lower down in the employment who may think of senior officers as all of a big club. There's a feeling about this, and I'm slightly concerned about this, that one doesn't know how matey people are with each other, and if one's whistleblowing, one wants to be protected in a sense, and I think so. I am concerned that it once again, it's nothing to do with the chief executive or the monitoring officer, but I think there may be a feeling that they are sort of on top there and maybe clubbing together, and therefore I think there should be some probably. I'm glad there is things like the writing to internal audit, but I think that should be probably the first step. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. I've got Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, so I mean, it does set out at 7.3 that whistleblowing concerns can be raised in a number of different ways to a number of different people, including internal audit. So it is catered for there. So people have got a choice of who they want to raise their concern with. I think it could be cleaned up. So page 6, paragraph 6.11 talks about Appendix 1. I think it means Appendix A probably, which would be more helpful because Appendix A then appears on page 15. I can't find an Appendix 1, so that needs cleaning up. But also Appendix A, which is the whistleblowing process, at point 2 ought to outline that there are other options other than the 3 mentioned as per 7.3 of the main document. So there's some things like that. I mean, all in all, I'm satisfied that internal audit have already seen this. They're happy with it. There are a range of options for people. I think 6.10 is relatively well balanced. You know, you do want to make sure that people aren't just frivolously bringing forward complaints that because they've got a grudge, you know, it has to be a serious thing. A whistleblowing is a serious thing, but it does set out there that, you know, you mustn't worry if you've got it wrong. It's better to raise it than not. So I think that's reasonably well balanced personally. So, you know, with those tidying up issues, I'm happy to support it today. I think it's important to get it in place.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I'm seeing Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. If I can just try to be very clear about what this amendment is seeking to do. There is an organisation called Protect. It's an organisation that has been in place for over 30 years now. It supports whistleblowers. It provides an advice line. It has handled over 50,000 cases since its formation, and it supports more than 3,000 whistleblowers each year. It also works with organisations to try to improve their whistleblowing and speaking up policies. It conducts research, it informs public policy, and it campaigns for better legal protection for whistleblowers. So it is an organisation with 30 years of experience, a lot of knowledge, and a lot to offer. What we are suggesting is that it would be sensible, if we are revising our whistleblowing policy, to make use of the benchmarking framework that Protect offers to businesses, to organisations, so that they can self-assess how good their whistleblowing arrangements really are. And what we are asking for, what we are asking for is for this to be reconsidered and brought back as swiftly as possible in the light of considering whether putting our arrangements through the Protect benchmarking framework would be a good idea. It might throw up issues that nobody has thought of. It might tell us what organisations outside East Cambridgeshire are doing, or even within East Cambridgeshire that aren't this council, are doing, that might inform what we might do to make our arrangements the best. That's what we're asking for, is a benchmarking exercise which is on offer from a reputable and well-established organisation to ensure that if we're going to do this job, we should do it as best we possibly can. And that's why we want this to be considered, so that we can then come back secure in the knowledge that we've tested what we're doing against that benchmark framework. That's what we're asking. That's all. It's fairly simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Strictly, we'd actually gone to the seconder, so yeah, we'd actually finished the. We're on the amendment. Yeah, I'm sympathetic to some of the things that are being said, but there are some items that have been mentioned that how do, perhaps we just put it to the vote in terms of the amendment as to, we've got the amendment, which is basically saying that we facilitate a review.
What is the word?
Protect.
To read it out, Chair.
Read it out.
Note the report and ask internal audit to initiate, I can't say the word, initiate a Protect whistleblowing benchmark assessment, with the resulting amendments being brought back to this committee.
Sorry, Chair, it's not initiate, it's facilitate.
Oh, facilitate, okay.
Through you, Maggie, do we have any idea how long that would take?
I have no idea. If Councillor Kane could offer any.
The alternative is that I think the alternative is that we adopt it today, but with some minor changes, and we also send it to Protect. We investigate with internal audit. I mean, going to Protect, and so we don't delay bringing it in. But you know, I'm conscious of the comments being made that we want it to be as robust as possible. So members of staff feel able to report anything that they're not happy with. Sorry, Maggie, do you want to come in?
No, sorry, I wondered if you want, I'm sorry, I'm just getting some clarity. So you want to approve it, but you also want to facilitate the whistleblowing benchmark with internal audit to do that. But do you wish it to be brought back to committee for final approval, or would you?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm going to suspend the order slightly here.
Sorry.
I'm trying.
I mean, this is
for
the
a consensus.
difficulty when we get an amendment on the hoof that we haven't been able to consider in advance, because we don't understand the implications. We don't know how long it's going to take. You know, I don't want to delay the adoption of the whistleblowing policy. It's an important policy, but I've taken on board, you know, the idea of having it independently assessed as well. So I think it would be perfectly reasonable to agree to adopt it today with the minor amendments that we've discussed, and then ask Maggie to investigate the process of asking internal audit to have it reviewed. And then if there are, you know, major changes that are needed, then it can be brought back in the future. I think that would be much better, because I'd rather know that we've adopted it and that we've got, you know, an updated policy in place that we're broadly happy with. You know, we've only dealt with minor things today, and then it can be externally reviewed if that's deemed to be appropriate when you've investigated the process. You know, I have no idea whether there's a cost involved. I have no idea how long it takes. I don't know who these people are, you know, because it's been sprung on us today.
Strictly, we've got an amendment on the table, but I'm conscious people have spoken. I will allow Councillor Goldsack and Miller, if they're short, to come back. I'm trying to get a consensus here. Councillor Kane.
So I see that we're trying to move towards consensus, and I appreciate that. I think there is room for compromise. I am concerned about the phrase investigate. I think we should just ask for them to do the self-assessment.
We don't know if there's even a cost.
It's not going to be onerous, and then have a date by when it comes back to this committee so that we can review the outcome. It's really important that we get this right.
I'll allow now Councillor Goldsack to come in and say on.
Okay, the point I was going to ask is with this being introduced, and you know, I think there's some merit in it. I really do, but I don't know who Protect are at all. I don't know if there's another dozen Protects out there that we could go to, and you've chosen Protect. I've absolutely no idea. So I don't feel that I can vote on this amendment, right? Because I don't know what the whistleblowing. I'm not an expert in whistleblowing. Now, what I could have done with a timed amendment is gone away and researched it, found out, looked at it, rather than a quick Google search as to who I'll protect whistleblowing. And I feel very uncomfortable with that.
Thank you, I know Councillor Miller wanted to come in, then I've got Councillor Hunt, then Councillor Dupre.
I was simply going to ask if there was any idea of how long it would take, but that question has already been answered.
I don't think we know the answer to that at the
That's
moment,
already been
Councillor Mills. I'm obviously, you know, going away from the standing orders here, but I'm trying to, as I say, trying to facilitate something. Councillor Hunt.
Yes, I think in all my experience as a councillor, I've very seldom found that making policy on the hoof is a good idea. It's a decision that's made too quickly. And if we're going to make a decision, we should sit down and do it in a measured way, not just have this poked in front of us without having proper time to consider all the ramifications. So even though it does have that superficial charm of being a good amendment, I think it's very unwise to have an amendment at such short notice, and I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm very grateful to you for informally suspending standing orders in order to try to achieve a consensus, because I genuinely believe there is a consensus to be had here, and I hope that we will work our way towards that. Personally, I can understand the concern about how long will it take, about any cost implications and so on. I can understand that, and therefore I personally would be happy to retain the word, to retain the investigation aspect of this, and to agree that that we could agree this as a temporary step, this proposal in front of us, while we do that investigation about a proper framework to benchmark this against. What I'm less happy with was the phrase used by the leader, in the future, that it could be brought back in the future. I would like for it to be brought back sooner than just in the future. And I would like, once we have investigated the cost and the if there is one, and the timescale and all the other issues around this, that we bring it back within a reasonable, defined timescale. That's what I'm more concerned about than about the word investigate. And I think if that can be addressed, then I think there is a consensus that we could build around.
Councillor Bailey wants to make a point of explanation.
Yeah, my point of explanation was that bringing back in the future was in relation to any changes. If it went through the process of Protect reviewing it, if they recommended changes, it could be brought back to this committee to adopt any changes or otherwise. That was what I was referring to, not whether to do it or not. So it sounds to me, Chair, like we are agreed, we're in agreement in the room that we adopt the policy today with the amendment, the minor amendments that have been discussed, and we ask Maggie to investigate having it reviewed via internal audit with Protect, and so that we can understand, you know, the time and the cost implications of that.
And we bring it back. Sorry, we bring it back in a timely fashion as soon as practicable.
Yeah.
Is that? I think that's because I think we're all in the same game of trying to get it.
I'm trying. I would like to add to that. And I think Maggie needs to assure that Protect are the right people to do this for.
She's going to investigate.
Yeah, that will be covered by investigate.
You know, we don't know anything about them other than a quick Google search mid-meeting.
Yeah. So yeah, of course.
I think actually it would probably, I'm sure that won't take, to investigate wouldn't take that long.
Yeah.
So I probably could be June.
Yeah.
Bring it back to June, finance and assets.
Yeah, we're going to adopt it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So have we got the wording on what we're actually agreed to, Tracy?
I think I've got
Thank
something,
you.
yeah. To agree the policy with minor amendments and to request the Director Legal to undertake an investigation with internal audit of the possible facilitation of an assessment and report back to the June meeting of the committee. Yeah. So you're by Protect in there. Right,
And
fine,
you're
yep.
happy
of a
you're-
Protect
to withdraw
assessment. Yes, that's
withdraw your
fine.
amendment.
Yeah.
Because it's been dealt with by the substantive motion.
Thank you, Chair, for facilitating an
Yeah,
agreement.
I think that was, personally, I think that was the right way forward. But, so is everybody in favour of that? Okay, thank you. I'm conscious of time. We've been going 2 hours. Do members want a quick break, or do you want to try and keep going?
Let's crack on.
Okay, all right, we'll carry on for a while and see how we go then. Yes, item 12 is, as you say, you again, it's Maggie again.
Thank you, Chairman. I brought a paper to you last year with the revised policies for RIPA and CHIS, which were accepted by this committee. The IPCO's guidance sets out that these should be reviewed yearly by members. I've done my initial assessment, and I've added in some formalisation regarding staff training in both policies. So the recommendation is to approve the amendments to the policies, and also note the update on the use of RIPA powers that I've set out at paragraphs 3.5, in that we haven't used the powers given to us under RIPA since last year. And also to give you an update on the training requirements and ongoing compliance. I can confirm that all the relevant staff, including corporate management team, have now been trained in RIPA processes and CHIS processes. And we had an IPCO inspection. The IPCO is the governing body for RIPA. And we had a very successful inspection on the 1st of December. And that confirmed that we're now compliant. We have all the processes, all the forms, etc. in place, the policies, and we will not require a further inspection until the end of 2026. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Maggie. We've had one question which from Councillor Kane, which I think has been answered. It's about the equality impact assessment. I'm happy to propose this from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Miller. I mean, all I'd like to say is, as Maggie said, I did attend that IPCO inspection on the 1st of December. The RIPA, just for members of the public watching at home, it's the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000. I hate, sort of abbreviations without putting those out. Myself, the Chief Executive and the Director Legal met with the representatives from RIPCO, and I thought it was a very interesting and profitable meeting, actually, to be honest. But we need to adopt this because it needs to come before us every year as an annual review of the policies. Do I have anybody who wants to make any comments on this? I'm seeing no hands. Because of that, I'm thinking everybody's in favour of the policy. Okay, thank you, members. That's unanimous. So we move on to item 13, which is the Community Land Trust Pre-Development Grant Application. And Sally's going to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Chair. The Council has 2 grant pots available to community land trusts, or CLTs, to bring community-led development forward: a start-up grant fund and a pre-development grant fund. Kennet CLT has submitted an application to the pre-development fund for just over £35,000 to enable the delivery of 60 affordable housing units that will be owned and managed by the CLT in perpetuity as part of the Kennet Garden Village development. The requested amount relates to legal fees, land registry, transfer fees, sales tax and loan arrangement fees. The application has been assessed and meets the criteria approved by Finance and Asset Committee in March 2022, and so members are recommended to approve the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. Do I have a proposer for the recommendation?
Yeah, I'd like to move the motion. Yeah.
Councillor Bailey, and I'm happy to second it from the chair. So, Councillor Bailey, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, very briefly. I mean, I'm really happy to support this application. Can it?
Oh, apologies before I allow you to do that. We had some questions from Councillor Kane. Are you happy with the? You are, sorry. In which case you can carry on, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, happy to support this. The trustees of Kennet Community Land Trust have put thousands and thousands of hours over many years into this project. And I think it's a very good thing that we set up our 100k pot to support this activity, because there isn't currently such a facility nationally for people to apply to. The last one was closed and nothing has replaced it so far. So I'm really pleased that we put that in place, and thank our officers for getting that in place. And I'd like to thank Kennet trustees for the massive work that they've put in and continue to put in, and it's all really happening for them now. It's incredibly exciting. Homes are being built, they're getting ready to have homes transferred to them. So, and to start, making those available for local people with ties to the community. So I'm really happy to support this and wish them very well in their endeavours.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bailey. Members, anybody wish to speak? Councillor Kane.
Yeah, I have concerns about this. And I'm not going to be supporting it. Under the terms of the grant fund, we say the grant cannot be used to fund activity that has happened in the past or prior to the grant being awarded. Groups must not start spending any money until the grant has been approved by way of issuing a formal grant agreement. And yet it's clear that this work has been going on for some time. There has also been other grants, some of which have had to be handed back because the work hasn't been completed in time. So I'm not convinced that this is eligible, because they are doing the works, they are spending the money, and we saw that because their grants for the year, their accounts for the year to 31st of March 2023 specifically say they're going to have to come to us for a grant because they're overspending. So on that grounds, I don't actually think it's eligible, unfortunately. My other concern is that the grant fund is for affordable housing to meet local housing needs. This should be permanently affordable for local people on local wages. Now, I asked about local wages, and we aren't able to get that data, but I note that the average house price in East Cambridgeshire is 352,000, and we're told that these houses would be sold at 80%, so that's about 282. Which if you were to get a mortgage on that, you'd need a salary of about 94k. Now, I know the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, doesn't think 100k is a significant income, but I suspect for East Cambs residents, 94k would indeed be a significant income. Similarly, we're told that the rent will be 80% of market rates. The market rate for rent in East Cambs is 943 per month. So that would come out at about 754. If we say that rent should be somewhere in the region of a third of your income, that would require an income of 30k. So I'm not convinced that these are going to be affordable for local people on local wages, and I don't actually quite know how we've assessed that if we don't know what the local wages are. I have other concerns, but they're to an extent historical. I don't understand why, when we had full control of this development and we were selling the land with the development rights to Bellway Homes, I don't understand why we didn't sort all of this out at that point. And I'm not entirely comfortable without understanding from the trustees of the CLT exactly why there have been all these delays, with us giving them a grant for something that they seem to have had a grant for before, albeit they had to hand some of it back. But fundamentally, as I say, the works have already started, they're already underway, the costs are already being incurred, so that makes it ineligible. And the affordable housing, I don't see evidence that it's going to be affordable on local wages. So I'm afraid I shall be voting against this.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Any Councillor Miller?
I'd like to ask through the chair how Councillor determines that you would need an income of £90,000. Is that what I heard? In order to afford a property notionally worth 288,000, at least marketed for that, on the assumption of a deposit of 20%. Or I mean, how did that calculation of 90,000 come about?
This is a debate, really, rather than questions to members. So, yeah.
I asked the question because it's the argument is set on the against the proposal on the basis that it's not affordable and that it wouldn't qualify. I don't see if the councillor wishes to offer that as an argument against, then surely the argument needs to be substantiated.
Within reason, members can say what they.
Can I make a point of personal explanation?
Yeah, I'm happy.
It's the other way round. We are looking at whether this grant, whether this application meets our grant requirements. Our grant requirements are that it should be affordable to people on local wages. An initial look at the evidence would suggest it isn't. It's not up to me to prove it isn't. It's up to the applicant to prove that it is, and I don't think they have.
Thank you for that. Councillor Goldtuck.
Well, based on the information that we heard from Councillor Kane, an average mean house price of 354k in East Cambridgeshire, that would include seven bedroom plus mansions with acres of land or one bedroom standalone properties. So what we're talking about here is the type of properties that are going out aren't going to be £354,000 in value. They're going to be much lower, I'm assuming, one, two and three bedroom starter homes. Therefore, that brings it down a little bit. So I don't think the maths quite work. And as you say, you're entitled to say it, so I'm saying the same. So a house, say, worth 250,000 at 80% is a very different proposition to one at 354 as the average. So I haven't got the detail. As long as the officers here are telling me that it meets the criteria for why we set up the fund, I can see no reason why we would stand against this. And having driven regularly past the development, what a pleasure it is to see it underway, bringing new homes. And can I also say, with the infrastructure in place already underway as well, it really is a delight to see.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I'm seeing no more people speak. I as seconder don't intend to make any comments, really. I'll leave it to Councillor Bailey to sum up.
Yeah, thanks. Just briefly, I think it's important to clarify that neither the District Council nor the trading company sold land to Bellway Homes. The landowner sold the land to Bellway Homes. And, you know, the houses are affordable homes. There is an accepted definition of affordable homes, 80% of open market, and they comply with that definition. So, you know, I'm really happy to move this ahead. I don't know what Councillor Kane expects if this is refused. Should Kennet CLT shut up shop and not offer take on their 60 homes and not offer them to local people to live in? I mean, that's the consequence of Councillor Kane refusing and being successful in turning this down. I'm certainly not going to support that. I'm 100% behind the Community Land Trust in Kennet and thank them for bringing forward this application, and I will support it absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bailey. I'm sensing we haven't got agreement on this, so if I can go to the vote, if those in favour of the recommendation is that members are requested to approve the grant of £35,154.85 to Kennet Community Land Trust as set out in paragraphs 4.1 and 4.4 of the report. So all those in favour of that proposal, please show. And all those against that proposal.
So the recommendation is carried by 6 votes to 4.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. We move on to item 14, which is the notes of the meeting of the East Cambs Bus Cycle Walk Working Party held on the 26th of February. We have had 2 questions, one from Councillor Kane, one from Councillor Trapp. Are you happy with the responses you've had back? Councillor Kane. Okay, thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Trapp, are you happy with your response?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. I mean, this is just for sorry, put my mic on. This is just for noting. No further Councillor.
Just one brief
Bailey.
comment. I do think it's important to set expectation because just from Councillor Trapp's question there, you know, it is above and beyond the remit of this authority to have carried out this work. We did it because we wanted to, you know, move our situation forward and try to secure better active travel infrastructure in our district. And, you know, County Council was doing precious little about it and the Command Authority was doing precious little about it. So we wanted to try and get ourselves in a position where we could make the case and move the situation forward for our district, which is why we chose to invest considerable sums of money in these Sustrans reports, the feasibility reports, and you know, other work that we've done since then on the initial reports. And I think that's been really important, but it's also equally important to understand that this tiny authority is not going to be, and is not the one tasked with delivering this infrastructure. What we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible for other people to support the case and deliver this infrastructure. And really, this is part of our effort to make it clear to others you know, what the options are. I just think it's important to set some expectations around that. Noting, although, you know, in the meantime, we have actually managed to find money to support 2 cycle paths in the district, the Witchford one, which was the growth and infrastructure money, and the Surham to Wickham one. So, you know, despite that, but, you know, we are not in the realms of delivering these routes for East Cambridgeshire. It is other authorities that have that remit.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Yes, yeah.
Just the briefest of comments. I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in the meeting on the 26th of February. I found it really open, really informative, and actually allowed the voice of the local person. So, for instance, on the Little Port to Ely one, I wasn't great involved, but I learned a great deal just by listening to that debate. So I thoroughly enjoyed the meeting, and it's a shame that we haven't got a pot of money that we can make this happen ourselves, and we're relying on others. But no, just want to make that note. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. As I say, this is just for noting, so it's noted. We move on to item 15, which is the forward agenda. We've got, I've got, if we look at the meeting for June, there'll be some additions. The environment plan will be coming to June, and the hedgehog SPD will come to September, because obviously it's got to go out of consultation in May. And then we've agreed just a couple of items ago about the whistleblowing policy. Hopefully that will come to June. Members, are there any other comments on the forward agenda plan? I'm seeing nothing, in which case that's for noting. So I now move to exclusion of the press, including inclusion of the public, including representatives of the press, that the press and public be excluded during the consideration of the remaining items, because it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, that if members of the public were present during that time, there would be disclosures of them of exempt information of categories 1, 2, 3 and 4 of Part 1, Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Do I have a proposer? I'll propose that from the chair. Second. All those in favour of that? Any against? No, thank you. In which case that closes the public part of the meeting, and I'd like to thank those members of the press and public who have been watching at home, and hopefully you enjoyed the proceedings and have a happy Easter break. Thank you.